Lorde started off the rollout for her new album Virgin by posting her first ever TikTok. In it, she's walking through a park. At first, it looks like any other park, but when she deliberately pans the camera to show you that triumphal Roman arch, those who know immediately recognize it as New York's Washington Square Park. A few days later, she used one of those artist texting apps to tell her fans to meet her in the park. They swarmed the park, the police shut it down, she lip-synced her new song in front of a bunch of fans, and a day or two later, the scene showed up in the official music video for her new single, What Was That? Lorde doing this continues a trend that we've seen recently that underscores the power of creating a spontaneous, real-world moment around your music. When Charli XCX first started the rollout for her album Brat, she did a surprise pop-up set at the Lorde Radio in Brooklyn, which her fans swarmed and packed out. 2 weeks after that, viral rapper Ian purportedly shut down the streets of New York by driving around and blasting his then unreleased music. Just a few days ago, Doechii did a pop-up in New York around her appearance at the Met Gala. And while it might seem like the obvious reason why artists do something like this is to celebrate with their fans, that's not the whole story. While these moments feel spontaneous to the fans who drop whatever they're doing and run to some location to see their favorite artist, many of them are meticulously planned out and crafted for virality. Today we're going to take a look at the psychology around these pop-up events. What is it actually like for fans to go to something like this? And maybe more importantly, what's it like for the people who can't go? Who is a pop-up really for? How has the idea of it changed and evolved in today's algorithm-driven social media climate? And as a little bonus, I'm gonna go where Lorde had her pop-up to do some research myself. But before we get into all that, if you like videos on music like this one, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe. I post a video every week. If you want to see them early, go to my Instagram, HADJI, throw me a follow and join my broadcast channel. I post all my videos in that broadcast channel one day early for free. Also wanted to say that my group Elmjack is dropping a new song this month, so stay tuned, it'll be out pretty soon. Alright, let's get back to the video. For as long as musicians have been stars, fans have been rushing to see them in public. In 1956, Elvis Presley was swarmed by fans at a gas station, which blocked access for the actual gas customers and made the owner pretty mad, which led to a fight between he and Elvis that got both of them arrested for disorderly conduct. The first time the Beatles came to the US in 1964, something like 3,000 fans were waiting to greet them at New York's JFK airport, to which, according to the New York Times back then, an airport employee shook his head and said, "We've never seen anything like this here before. Never. Not even for kings and queens." Elvis and the Beatles are two of the most hyped acts in music history. The Elvis craze is well documented, and Beatlemania was so nuts that there's an adjective to describe it that I didn't even have to make up. These out-of-control public events become urban legends that help solidify just how much the fans were going cuckoo for them. For people who weren't following the Beatles yet in 1964, or didn't know Elvis yet in the 50s, or people who weren't familiar with Michael Jackson during his heyday, when they saw reports of things like this in the newspaper, they were like, okay, I need to find out more about this thing. Artists today would love to be mythologized in such a way. In the digital age, it's incredibly difficult to stick out in a sea of other people trying to create and make a living out of it. And it feels like it gets harder and harder to do it every year. It's also well established that online hype does not always translate into real-world results, especially not when streams can be faked, followers can be bought, and algorithms can be gamed. Concerts have long been the gold standard for figuring out exactly how popular an artist is. How big are the venues that an artist plays on tour? Are they selling those venues out, or at least coming close? Well, this might be the most trustworthy and accurate judge of popularity that the music industry readily shows us. It's still imperfect. Concerts are expensive as hell, so some of your biggest fans might not even be able to go. That's what makes pop-up events so appealing to some fans. You're telling me I get to see Lorde for free instead of paying $500 to sit so far back that I need to bring binoculars? It feels like a favor is being done for fans. And in exchange, whether those fans know it or not, the fervor that they bring to the pop-up event or the surprise meetup helps the artist look more popular and more in demand. While pop-up events have been around and bands like Kiss were selling meet and greet tickets like at least 30 years ago, and some artists like Chris Brown and Boosie continue to innovate in the world of the meet and greet, social media has fundamentally changed the way that artists interact with their fans in person. Creating a viral moment out of a pop-up is now just as important as the event itself, if not more important. Charli XCX did this a few times during her Brat rollout. Her free DJ set at the Lorde Radio in Brooklyn was a month or two before the album actually came out. And it was the first signal that we got that we were gonna have a Brat summer whether we knew it in the moment or not. It's like how all the birds start flying when there's gonna be a storm, or how people's arthritis starts acting up when it's gonna rain. In 2023, Charli XCX was prominently featured in a New York Times article titled, "What Happens If a Pop Star Isn't That Popular?" which I'm sure feels like a slap in the face to the artist, even though the actual article is a more even-keeled exploration of what it means to be like a middle-class pop act. Just like YouTube's video titles and thumbnails, sometimes the headline is just there to bait you into clicking. Still, something like this The Lot Radio pop-up event feels designed in a lab to be the perfect clapback to the statement that Charlie isn't that popular. If I'm not so big, she might ask, then how did I just bring all these people to a shipping container in Brooklyn? I talked to some diehard Charlie fans about what going to that event was like. This person identifies as a Charlie XCX superfan who has seen Charlie live at least 5 or 6 times, and they, as you might guess, had a great time at the Lot Radio. But they did notice some really interesting things about the demographics. Everyone at the Lot Radio pop-up was a superfan. Wouldn't necessarily say the same for her most recent Barclays show. How could she tell? An indicator was the line for the girl bathrooms. I used to be one of the few girls in a sea of gay guys. That certainly has changed. What makes the surprise pop-up so uniquely effective is how it works for the people who go and for the people who don't go. Of course, the people who went have a great time, but that's still a small fraction of the Charlie fanbase. The social media frenzy that she spun up around Brat is what helped propel the album to where it went and to where she is today, doing big arena shows at the Barclays Center. Nothing is more exciting on social media than seeing huge crowds of people show up for this thing, having fun spontaneously in good weather. People sitting at home, scrolling on their phones, are drawn to these spontaneous events. It feels a lot like Squidward looking out of his window at SpongeBob and Patrick having fun. The word for that is FOMO. And for people who don't know who she is already, now they might check her out, see what the hype is all about. For people who do know who she is, and they might already like her, but they might not be concert ticket buyers, when they see how fun the event looks, they might be inclined to buy one next time. And now everybody wins. And these artists still do big concerts, of course, and that's where they make their money. These free or close to free events, they're not money makers. Instead, they're more like advertisements for the artists. They make a deep connection with the lucky fans who actually can go, and hopefully make millions of comparatively superficial impressions on social media with the fans at home and some people who might not have been fans before. One of the features on Brat was Lorde, who clearly learned a lot from watching the success of her friend, or maybe her frenemy if you listen to the lyrics on their song. In a recent interview, she said that Brat forced her to further define what she was doing, and the pop-up event she just had in Washington Square Park was a great way to set the tone for her 4th album. Lorde's first album went nuclear, and her second album, Melodrama in 2017, went #1 in its first week and did 109,000 units. By contrast, her third album, Solar Power in 2021, only did 56,000 units in its first week, about half of what Melodrama did, and peaked at #5 on the Billboard charts. Lorde is an artist who likes to take her time and craft detailed and personal projects, which her fans will always love and always eat up. But when you take 4 years between every album, it can be hard to maintain momentum, unfortunately. That's just the reality of music in the 2020s. So hosting an event where fans are rushing to meet you in a park is a great way to make the statement of numbers are one thing, but clearly I have diehard fans who still love me a decade later after Pure Heroin. The fact that the music video for the song, which came out just a day after the pop-up, prominently features clips from it, shows how important this moment is to Lorde and to her album's rollout. Even though it probably felt so spontaneous and so spur of the moment for the fans who were there. They had to play the song off a Bluetooth speaker because the cops shut down the event and said that they weren't allowed to play anything off an amplified device without a permit, which honestly adds to the DIY aspect and made fans feel like a part of it. There was somebody who apparently stepped up with a violin to entertain people. Blood Orange, Dev Hines, who worked on the album, was going around like blasting the song. And honestly, it seems pretty likely that Lorde and her team would have known that they needed a permit for this kind of event. And it makes you wonder if some of the chaos of it getting shut down is actually part of the design, but I don't know for sure. Artists love to pull the "we got shut down so we had to take it to the streets" move. In 2024, Cash Cobain's show at Irving Plaza got shut down, so he walked with them to Union Square Park, carrying a Bluetooth speaker and then rapped along with his fans. Well, of course, having a big show at Irving Plaza would be a huge moment for a New York rapper, really for anybody. You could argue that something like this is more viral, and the people who stuck around and followed him to the park are way more likely to remember that experience than they would have been to remember a regular old rap concert. And he actually did the same thing in 2023 when he told some fans to pull up on him in Washington Square Park. And shout out to the guy on Instagram who sent me a video of this happening, which is pretty sick. I don't think it's a coincidence that after watering his fan base in this way, constantly doing these in-person type events, Cash Cobain is one of the artists that you're most likely to hear outside when you're in New York, whether it's blasting from a car or playing in a store or something like that. And so bigger artist teams like Lorde's team are likely looking at this and thinking, we could really use some of that grassroots energy. The smartest artists will take the idea of that spur-of-the-moment pop-up and then put their own flavor on it. Tyler, the Creator, used the power of the pop-up in his most recent album, Chromacopia's rollout. while he's doing a huge arena tour and a bunch of big festival appearances, fans will get plenty of opportunities to pay big bucks to go see a show. He also did smaller listening sessions where the tickets were only $5. For the one in New York, he pulled up on a boat and performed on top of a shipping crate, something that was heavily featured in the visual rollout for his album. J. Cole has done his famous $1 in a Dream shows, where he announces the venue the day of, and then sells tickets for just $1, which fits his humble and down-to-earth persona. And I'm still salty that I waited in line in 2014 in the pouring rain and didn't get one. Of course, conventional wisdom will tell you that you have to be a certain size to pull off a pop-up event like this. Well, it's true that to be able to just post a picture of a park and expect fans to show up, you're gonna have to be an A-lister. Smaller artists can take advantage of similar principles to gain attention on social media. Lexa Gates is a rapper from Queens, no wonder she's so good, who went viral for dancing inside a glass cube in Union Square for 10 hours to promote her album. While I'm sure 99% of the people who walked by have no idea who Lexa Gates is, you can bet a lot of people stopped to check out what was going on. And some of those people probably did look up her album after. And for the people who just saw it later on social media, they might have done the same thing. Making a public spectacle in order to go viral isn't reserved to just superstars. The real drawback to doing the pop-up is if you aren't experienced enough in hosting one, and you don't really do it right, it can spiral out of control. In 2023, Kai Cenat held a pop-up in Union Square where he was going to give away PS5s and gaming equipment. But it quickly got out of control. Thousands of kids showed up, some who behaved better than others. People were jumping on cars, setting off fireworks, and it led to 65 arrests and 7 injuries. Kai himself got taken into custody, although the charges were dropped after he paid close to $60,000 to deal with all the damages. Many boomers, Gen X's, and honestly probably some millennials learned who Kai Cenat was for the first time on that day. And it probably wasn't the first impression he wanted to make with them. Pop-ups are really just a way to generate attention in a time where artists don't just have to compete with other artists and songs aren't just up against other songs, but they have to compete in the algorithm for attention against literally everything. When people's online experience is an endless waterfall scroll of videos and artist content gets put up right next to memes, news, podcasts, Italian brain rot, literally anything else that might make you stop scrolling for a second and check it out. So artists need to make things that are engaging, that are wow. And in a way, these pop-ups are how artists can enter the same algorithm as some of that man on the street content that you would see on TikTok a ton. And it actually had me thinking, because as a New Yorker, I know that the park where Lorde did her pop-up is infamous for being full of people trying to go viral. Even if you aren't from New York, as long as you scroll on TikTok or IG Reels, you've probably watched some viral content with this fountain in the background or this arch in the background. Washington Square Park isn't the biggest park in New York, or the easiest to get to, or the one with the most foot traffic, but what it lacks in those attributes, it makes up for it by having probably the highest concentration of aura farmers of anywhere in the world. As it turns out, one of the most infamous examples of spontaneous live music performance in New York's history happened here decades ago. And so maybe this place can give us some perspective on social media's role in blending the worlds of IRL and online, and what that means for the attention economy we live in today. You guys might know me as a music YouTuber or a musician, but behind all that, most importantly, I'm a dork. And one of the topics that I happen to be a dork about is New York City, and in particular, its parks. When I was in college, I wrote an 85-page paper for my thesis on the history and creation of Flushing Meadows Park in Queens. Washington Square Park might not be very big. In fact, it's almost 90 times smaller than Flushing Meadows Park, but there's still a lot of history packed into those 10 acres. Like a lot of things in New York and in the US in general, the history is layered and often quite dark. Manhattan was infamously purchased by the Dutch from the Lenape tribe for what was then about $24, and before it was called New York, it was New Amsterdam. This is why even though we speak English here, there are still some Dutch names left over like the Bronx or Brooklyn. At this point, the land where Washington Square Park is today was described as marshy ground and a fine trout stream called Minetta. Imagine eating fresh trout caught in the middle of Manhattan. Imagine there being a fish in Manhattan that doesn't have 7 eyes. The Dutch came up with a plan to turn it into a farm to help feed their growing population. In 1642, they gave plots of land to recently freed African-born slaves in exchange for a portion of the crops that they grew on the land. Parts of these pieces of land included what became Washington Square Park. This arrangement was short-lived because just about 20 years after, the English invaded New Amsterdam and took it and made it a part of the British Empire. Under English rule, freed black farmers lost the right to own land. And so all of this property was incorporated into larger estates owned by white Europeans, English and Dutch. The land was owned privately for at least 100 years, until after the Revolutionary War when the city of New York bought it for $4,500 to use it as a potter's field, or basically a place to bury unknown and unclaimed people. They expected to bury about 5,000 people there, but more than 20,000 people are today buried under Washington Square Park, many of whom died from the vicious and nasty disease known as yellow fever. Once the plot was filled, it was paved over and used as a parade ground and training ground for militias. Soon after, New York University, or NYU, was founded just a block away. And in 1889, to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of George Washington becoming the first president of the United States, they built the arch that we all know the park for today. Honestly, I could sit here and pull fun facts out about the park and its history for hours, but I know you guys don't want to hear about that, unless you do, which let me know in the comments. But I'm gonna cut myself off, just for your sake. As that area in lower Manhattan morphed from wet marshland to what is today an expensive, well-to-do, mostly residential area with a lively college campus, so did the purpose of the park. It's sort of like a town square, and so for the last century, performers and artists have been a major part of the culture of Washington Square Park. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the park was a popular place for folk singers, as the folk scene blossomed in the neighborhood of Greenwich Village, which includes Washington Square Park. Legends like Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, and Bob Dylan were born out of this scene. The folk music of this scene was associated with the beat movement, a culture built around poetry and left-wing views that, as an overview, were seen as anti-capitalist, anti-war, anti-segregation, and pro-multiculturalism and sexual freedom. The government was not the biggest fan of these people. Seeger himself even stood trial for his connections to communism during the McCarthyist 1950s. These folk musicians didn't just play in nearby bars and clubs like the Gaslight Cafe, but they also loved to play outside, especially at Washington Square Park. And for the 40s and 50s, this mostly went over totally fine. You needed a permit to play there, which the folk singers would apply for and they would get, until 1961, when one day they didn't get the permit. They never got an explanation for why they were rejected, although it doesn't take too much to put together it was probably political. So almost 3,000 of them, led by Izzy Young, and supposedly including a young Bob Dylan, showed up to the park to protest. The cops were there waiting for them, and they arrested and beat them. It became known as the Beatnik Riot. But this didn't stop musicians from coming to play in the park. In fact, according to one of them who was there, David Bennett Cohen, it came back even stronger. Today, no permit is required anymore as long as you're not bringing amplified sound, and the park is filled with tons of performers, including musicians, famous and not so famous. We can see why Lorde made the decision to host her event here. Lorde isn't even the first pretty big artist to do a spontaneous listening type event in this very park. Back in 2013, Childish Gambino had his fans meet him there to hear an early version of his album, Because the Internet. Donald Glover himself went to NYU, so it's not too surprising he would pick Washington Square Park. Today, the park is not only known as one of the best places in New York to perform in public, but it's also to see and be seen, to people watch, to aura farm. For as many people who go there to people watch, just as many are going to intentionally be watched. So I went there for about an hour and talked to some of the people who I could tell were there to do one of those two things. Here's how it went. All right, so what brought you guys out to Washington Square Park today?
We're shooting the single art for a song that's coming out soon.
Hell yeah, what kind of music do you make?
Kind of like country, Americana, rock and roll.
Right now, we just here trying to network, do content, you feel me, tap in, you feel me? Yeah, that's all. You know, trying to hustle up and grind. I don't know what they doing. What they doing? What y'all doing?
I'm like a content creator. You know, I gotta like go outside, try to look for some activities. You feel me? To record some video, and that's it.
I'm a photographer, so whatever they doing, I'm recording, I'm taking pictures, getting fly as usual, living life.
So I'm here today to interview people. Basically, I'm asking about people where they're from, what their culture or heritage is, and where they're from around the world, because New York is such a diverse place. So many people from all around the world, and I want to share that with people. So I host a social media page called Borderless Club. I interview people around the world. I just interviewed her. She's from Bhutan, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so that was really cool. I got to know a lot about Bhutan. And I also throw events here in New York City. So we're called Borderless Club. So, yeah.
Dude, this is like by far the most wholesome of anything in Washington Square Park, probably. Like, there's a guy over there whose sign is like, please f my wife. So like to go like just 20 feet away, you know, like this is just such a different experience.
I'm gonna be honest with you. The real reason why we came to Washington Square Park was to risk girls and have girls in the video. Let's not be around the bush, bro.
That's for him.
That's why we
That's
came
for him.
over here. Cause they was all talking about girls. They was like, yo, bro, pop out. Come on, let's have these girls in our videos. That's not me. That's not me. I'm trying to focus on my crowd. They focus on girls.
I'm trying to focus my crowd. What are you talking about? Oh, look. Where's your camera at, boy? Where's your camera?
My camera's right
This
there,
is
bro.
my camera.
gang. I see. What are you talking about?
Why did you pick Washington Square Park of all the parks?
Well, all the college kids are here, and then it's a big tourist spot. I haven't really done anything else. I actually saw a TikTok of this guy saying it's the best place to like sell old shoes and socks and stuff. So I was like, well, if they're gonna buy used socks, I'm about to make content out of them.
Usually pays the best.
I feel like Washington Square Park is super. There's a lot of people who are very open here. There's a lot of different types, and I think here people are the most willing to expect the unexpected.
Even though there's a lot of people here, everyone's so f***ing weird that pretty much no matter what you're doing, no one's paying that much attention to you. So, you know, people aren't really going to interrupt you when that whole thing is happening.
Well, unless they're like filming a video and they come up to you in the middle of your shoot.
Yeah, except that.
I ain't gonna lie, it's the view, the people, the style, the aesthetic, and people is nice over here. I ain't gonna lie. And the real reason why I'm coming over here too is because like I like art a lot, and they show off a lot of like they painting work. So I always go over there just trying to like show support. Yeah, that's why I want to be coming over here. All jokes aside though.
For me, I like to come over here because you usually see something that is out of normal. Like, you feel me? Like, I just seen some dude like training a pigeon. Like, how? Like, you feel me? I want to record this, But yeah.
Absolutely. What's the craziest thing you've ever seen here?
How much time do I have?
I don't know. This one girl came up to me saying like her getting choked out by her boyfriend was like her most romantic experience. A lot of infidelity, but a lot of love. So I hear just a lot of stuff.
Like, I've seen some wild stuff. All right, one time I was out here with my band, and we made like $200 each. We're sitting in front of this guitar case that has a big pile of ones of it, right? A couple 20s and a couple 10s, and this crackhead comes up to me, and he says, yo, usually crackheads will come up to you and ask you for money for like food or water, but I'm gonna keep it a buck. I just want crack, bro. Can you spend $5 and give me $5 for some crack? I said, yo, whatever. Right? Take the 5. It was not worth my hassle. I respected the honesty. And he comes back 5 minutes later, and he shows me a little thing in his hand, and he's got $5 worth of crack, right? I'm like, all right, that's interesting, that's cool. And I'll show you this video. Maybe you'll put it on screen in the middle of this video, right?
Make that happen.
Right? So this dude, I swear to God, they're doing construction on the arch, right? They got scaffolding and they got a big crane, and the guy gets on the operator for the crane and climbs up to the top of the arch and gets butt-ass naked and starts whipping his dick out in front of everyone.
You just meet everybody in Washington Square Park. There are locals, there are tourists, there are artists, and there are students. It's just like literally everybody from all walks of life. Like, New York is like a microcosm of the world, but then Washington Square Park is a microcosm of New York. So it's like, it's really great just to kind of be around all sorts of people.
You ever heard the term aura farming?
Aura farming? Yeah.
What do you feel like this is the aura farming capital of New York?
Low key, because my go viral.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the term aura farming?
Yeah.
Have you thought you might be literally aura farming, right? I don't know if you thought about that. What you were doing.
Yeah, growing good vibes.
Or I do know what, it's some Gen Z shit, but yeah, I heard about it, yeah.
His aura goes down spending time in here. The guy who whipped his dick out, did his aura go up or down?
I think aura's in the eye of the beholder, man. Did you see the Lorde concert that was here?
I was there, yeah. It was amazing.
Oh, you were there? Okay.
I was there, yeah.
Like, do you feel like it's just a park that aligns with, like, what Lorde means?
I would say so. I mean, this park is all artists, weirdos, freaks, bohemians. It's like cool people, seriously.
People, I feel like they come out to the park to find something, to find some music or for some entertainment or performance, or at least people watching,
So to me, when artists do these IRL pop-ups, especially when they're surprises or they're really hyped up, they're entering the internet in the same way that someone dressed in a crazy fit or carrying a sign that says, please fuck my wife, is entering Washington Square Park. It's just aura farming on a grand scale. A big part of the goal in 2025, even when you're doing something on the surface to celebrate with your diehard fans, is to get posted on the internet and go viral. For actually bringing people out of their houses and off their phones, which gets harder and harder to do every year. And I can see why someone would think these things are antithetical to each other. But maybe it's not a zero-sum game. Just because something is being done IRL to go viral doesn't invalidate all the fun and connection that people feel when they're actually there IRL doing the thing, having these exchanges and experiences with people around them. If you go to one of these viral baiting aura farming pop-ups and you have a great time, you still had a great time. There's no invalidating that. You can argue that it's performative to do these pop-ups in the name of fandom when they're really just trying to farm attention, but at the end of the day, these are performers that we're talking about. So maybe it's appropriate. What do you guys think? Do you like these pop-ups and these spur-of-the-moment events? Have you been to any of them? Do you feel FOMO when you see them happening on your phone? Or are you glad you're not there because it looks crowded and sweaty? Let me know in the comments, and let me know what you want me to cover next. Peace.